The theater smelled of sawdust and ghosts. Johnny Depp stood center stage of the crumbling Royale Theater in New Orleans, the dust of decades rising around his boots. Once grand, the space now sagged under neglect. Velvet curtains faded to rust, chandeliers heavy with cobwebs. A single shaft of light knifed through a hole in the roof, illuminating the stage like a sacred wound. He had come alone. No publicist, no entourage. Just a battered satchel and a vague invitation scribbled on parchment. He wrote about you every night. Come see for yourself. M. At first, Johnny had thought it a prank, a relic from some eccentric fan. But something about the ink, the way it bled and shook, felt too raw to ignore. And the name Royale triggered a flicker of memory, a film shoot 2 decades earlier, a hurricane-shortened schedule, a young crew, a stagehand with eyes too old for his face. Johnny walked the board slowly. Every step creaked with the weight of a forgotten past. Then he saw it, a trap door at stage left, edges outlined in red chalk. He crouched and lifted it. A small crawl space opened beneath, and within it, a metal box wrapped in stained linen. Johnny's fingers trembled as he unlatched it. Inside, a leather-bound journal, a ring of keys, and a Polaroid photo. The picture showed Johnny in costume, young, grinning, his arms slung around a teen in a headset and stage crew vest. The boy's name came back in a rush, Eli. Johnny sat down hard on the stage, the journal open in his lap. The first page was written in a looping, hopeful hand. Day 1, Mr. Depp smiled at me today. Not the movie smile, the real one, the one that says, I see you. He read until the sun dipped low behind broken rafters. Entry after entry, a boy's dreams, a backstage world, descriptions of scenes and props and laughter. But also pain, hints of bruises under jackets, of a silence too loud at home. Eli had lived more in shadows than spotlight. The final entry chilled him. Last day on set, Mr. Depp asked for coffee. I brought it with shaking hands. He looked me in the eye and said, you ever want to do this? Really do this? I'll help. He doesn't know he saved me today. I hope one day he'll remember. Johnny ran his fingers over the dried ink. Guilt curled in his stomach like smoke. He had no memory of that moment. He sat there for hours reading every page until the sounds of the city beat outside faded to nothing. When he finally stood, it was as if the weight of a life had been placed on his shoulders. The journal went back in his satchel. Tomorrow he would find out what happened to Eli, and why the words in that journal burned like an apology he never knew he owed. Morning in New Orleans came with the sound of jazz drifting like incense through the quarter. But Johnny Depp didn't notice. He sat at a small cafe across from the Royal Theater, the journal open beside a barely touched espresso. The Polaroid photo of young Eli peeked out from beneath the pages, a frozen moment in time that now felt unbearable to look at. Johnny had read the journal 3 more times overnight, not for missed details, but because each word unraveled him further. Eli hadn't been a starstruck fan. He'd been seen once and built a world around that fragile light. Johnny's offhand kindness, the smallest gesture in a long-forgotten workday, had become a lifeline for someone drowning silently behind the curtains. And then, nothing. No follow-up, no letter, no second chance. Johnny flagged down a waitress, voice hoarse. Excuse me, do you know anything about the Royale Theater? The boy who worked there? Eli? She blinked. Eli Monroe? His heart skipped. Yes, that's him. She gave a quiet nod, her voice dipping low. Sweet kid. Used to sketch the performers in chalk when he couldn't afford paper. Quiet type, always alone, except when the theater hosted crew. I think he died a few years back. Nobody's sure how. Johnny felt the world go dim for a moment. What do you mean? Found in his apartment? No family claimed the body. Just this old woman came in one day and said, his story's not done. Took a boost of his things and vanished. Johnny's hand tightened on his cup. Do you know her name? She shrugged. Went by M. That's all I know. Johnny stood, left a $100 bill on the table, and crossed the street to the Royale. This time he didn't hesitate. He unlocked the side door using the ring of keys Eli had left. Inside, the theater smelled of mildew and wood rot, but also of memory. He walked past the stage, down into the wings, and followed the corridor that led to the dressing rooms. Halfway down the hallway, he noticed it. Room 4. The door was slightly ajar. Inside, dust blanketed the furniture like snowfall, but someone had placed a candle on the table, long since melted into a warped tower of wax. And next to it, another journal. Johnny opened it. Day 172. Still no word from Mr. Depp. Maybe he meant it, maybe he didn't. But I write like he's reading. His throat closed. Day 198. They offered me backstage crew at the Majestic. Said I'd be great. I said no. What's the point? He said he'd help. Maybe he forgot. Day 220 had a dream last night that he came back, that he asked me to design the lights for his next film, that I belonged somewhere. I woke up crying. Day 300, I think I'm done writing. I don't think he's coming. The pages blurred through Johnny's vision. He dropped into a chair, grief sitting beside him like an old friend. How many people had he passed like this? Bright sparks, waiting for someone to believe in them. How many had he lifted with words he never knew would linger, only to let go? Then he saw it. Taped inside the back cover of the journal was a sketch, Eli's final drawing, a stage lit by moonlight. A single figure at the center, not Johnny, not Eli, but a spotlight itself, shaped like a man, illuminating everything around it. Beneath it, a note in pencil. Some of us are born to be stars. Some of us just want to make sure the stars can shine. That's when he noticed the letter tucked inside the ring box on the vanity. Dear Mr. Depp, if you're reading this, it means someone believed enough to send you here. I didn't leave this to haunt you. I left it so you'd remember that you matter more than the movies. You matter because you made me matter, even for a second. That was enough. But if you're still standing, then maybe it's your turn to tell someone else they matter. Please don't forget me. Eli. Johnny pressed the page to his chest, unable to speak. The next day, he made a call to a friend at a film school in Louisiana, then another to a local nonprofit. He didn't know exactly what form it would take, but something would rise from these ashes. A scholarship, a stage, a light. Because if Eli spent his life behind the scenes, making others shine, Johnny would spend the rest of his making sure no one ever stood in the dark alone again. 3 years later, the Royale Theater no longer echoed with loneliness. Its once faded facade had been lovingly restored, its crimson signs glowing like a heartbeat against the New Orleans night sky. The words had changed too. Now it read, the Eli Monroe Stage, where every voice matters. Inside, rows of seats buzzed with the nervous energy of aspiring artists, young and hungry, dressed in thrifted tuxedos and hand-stitched gowns. Cameras flashed. A banner hung above the velvet curtain. The first annual Stagehand Scholarship Showcase. Backstage, Johnny Depp stood alone in the wings, his reflection caught in a cracked mirror someone had chosen to leave untouched. The same mirror Eli had once stared into. Johnny touched the frame gently. He was older now. The eyeliner had faded. The jewelry was simpler, but the quiet fire in his eyes burned deeper than it had in decades. There were creases on his face where smiles used to live, only on red carpets. Tonight, they were real. A teenage girl in a plaid vest and combat boots approached him, head set slightly crooked. Mr. Depp, we're about to start. Johnny smiled. Thank you, Claire. She beamed. I'm not supposed to say this, but I was going to drop out last year. Then I read Eli's journals in the green room. I stayed because of him, because of you. He nodded, voice low. Then you're exactly where you're meant to be. She handed him a thick envelope. For you, it just arrived. No return address. Looks old. Johnny opened it slowly. Inside was a Polaroid. Eli again, but this time someone had written on the back in flowing script. He saw the light in others. Now they carry it forward. There was something else too, a sketch. Not by Eli this time. It was a child's drawing, crude, colorful, and powerful. A stage filled with faceless figures. But at the center stood one figure, shining with golden rays. Below it, in clumsy crayon handwriting, I want to be like Eli. I want to make stars. Anthony, age 8. Johnny's throat caught. He folded the sketch and tucked it into the breast pocket of his vest, close to his heart. Out front, the house lights dimmed. Johnny stepped onto the stage, not as a performer, but as a storyteller. A witness, a keeper of the echo. He looked out at the full house. Students, families, directors, a few faces from old films, and many he'd never seen before. And he thought of the one seat left intentionally empty in the front row. A single conch shell sat there now, borrowed from another story. A tribute to those whose voices had gone unheard for too long. He leaned into the mic. Tonight isn't about fame, he began, or followers, or flashing lights. It's about a boy who worked backstage, who believed his voice didn't matter. But it did, it does. His name was Eli Monroe, and because of him, we've built something bigger than all of us. A pause. He wrote journals to no one. Now they're being read by everyone. And tonight, these lights shine for every kid who thought they were invisible. Not anymore. Applause swelled, but Johnny raised a hand gently. He motioned to the wings. The first performer stepped forward, a shy boy with trembling hands and a violin. He paused, terrified, until he saw Johnny nod at him, the tiniest gesture of belief. And that was enough. He began to play. The music soared through the rafters, notes stitched together like whispered dreams. In the wings, Johnny watched as each performer stepped out, one after another, each carrying a little of Eli's legacy in their bones. Backstage, a wall had been turned into a memorial mural. In the center was a painting of Eli, not as a stagehand, but as a lighthouse, its beam cutting through the storm. Later that night, long after the curtain had fallen, Johnny returned to the now empty theater. He sat in the front row where the conch still rested. He picked it up, held it to his ear. This time he didn't hear silence. He heard pages turning, applause echoing, laughter, music, and somewhere deep inside, one voice, soft and certain. "Thank you for coming back." Johnny smiled through tears. "I never left," he whispered. "I just needed the lights to find my way home." And for the first time in years, he wasn't alone in the dark. If this story moved you, even just a little, take a moment to share it. Somewhere out there, a quiet dreamer like Eli is waiting to be seen. Like if you believe every voice deserves a stage, share to keep Eli's legacy alive beyond the curtains. Comment below, who was the Eli in your life? The one who made you feel visible? Subscribe for more real, emotional stories that shine light where others don't. Because sometimes the spotlight belongs behind the scenes.